What's trending in Trumplandia?
We haven't really heard from Don Jr., certainly not as much as we heard from him in the first term, right? It feels like he hasn't been doing a whole lot of media. Same with all of his kids, frankly, in this term. They've kind of been in the background. I imagine, at least with Don Jr. and maybe Eric Trump, they're providing some support, as it were. I imagine that's the case. But for the most part, they've been kind of silent. Well, Don Jr. did an interview on Newsmax on Friday during this show and had some thoughts.
Despite all the uproar you saw from the Democrats in the media, it's interesting when you do all the candid interviews of people on the streets of D.C., 93% of whom are hardened leftists. They're like, no, this is great. I feel safe. This is a wonderful thing. Let's do this. Maybe we should roll out the tour to Portland, Seattle,
yes.
The other, what we'd call, crap hole cities.
Okay. I don't know if this was intentionally a callback to the other language that was used. What was that for? It was for
like third
Haiti,
world countries,
right?
like Haiti.
But it
yes.
started with Haiti, but
Yeah.
the third world countries. So now they're bringing crap hole, which is certainly radio and TV friendlier, I suppose, specifically of Portland. Sometimes when you get name checked in national interviews with bigger named celebrities and lawmakers and newsmakers, you do a like, oh, cool, they're talking. It's like when you're in a movie theater and all of a sudden one of the scenes takes place in like Bellingham or Bellevue or Seattle. Like, oh, look, I know that place. Yeah, this one, not the best kind of name check in the world.
Of the country, not because they're crap holes, but because Democrats made them so. Yeah. Maybe we're going to expand this because it's sort of interesting when a very left-leaning base is actually encouraging these kind of policies because they know the truth.
Now, his position here makes total sense in a more general way, right? I mean, the idea of sending federal law enforcement to help local law enforcement in areas that need it the most makes sense. Does Seattle qualify? I would argue not. As much as I would love the help and career boost that would bring to me, if I'm being totally upfront and acting in good faith, which we like to do on this show, do we have an emergency in Seattle or even Portland that would necessitate what's happening, for example, in D.C., assuming you could legally get away with that? No, we don't. Would I love the help? Yeah, absolutely. Could we use it? 100%. But this is not our crime is going down the way D.C. crime is going down kind of argument. We just don't have what I think a reasonable person would call an emergency. I don't. Certainly not in the context of all the other places that very easily could argue deserve some kind of federal intervention. It's always better when the federal intervention comes and it's invited. And you bring the National Guard here, I can see why the president might want to do something like that because it creates kind of like what we talked about in the last hour, right? The 90-10, 80-20 argument. Because the people would come out, and no doubt, especially in Seattle, there would be massive protests, probably violent. And that would make the left look even crazier than they are. But they basically would have to argue why they're okay with what's happening in Seattle. And the average person who doesn't view things through the MSNBC, CNN lens of fascism, autocracy, and all those things, they would say, maybe I disagree with the way Trump is going at it, but at least he's trying to help. At least he's trying to help. Versus the Democrats who would be forced to say there's no problem here. Sure, homelessness just skyrocketed yet again. Sure, we just had a bunch of double homicides. Yeah, there's drug dealers who say they own our sidewalks and they're not being sent to jail for their crimes, but we don't have a problem. It kind of puts Democrats in the position of defending the indefensible. But I don't think you could legally warrant using, in this case, I presume they would use the Insurrection Act. I mean, the whole argument, especially in the context of what's going on in Chicago, as you've heard, the president is arguing that he might want to send National Guard to Chicago next to help with the incredibly high murder rate. And their mayor, who is deeply unpopular, although he did go from, I think it was 7% or 8% approval, he's back up to the mid-20s. That's kudos to him.
Over tripled it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty massive. He's deeply unpopular, and he's pretending there's no crisis there. Crime is down in Chicago. Okay, yeah, thanks. Crime is down in Chicago. You go from 1 million murders to 999,000. It's down. Great, congratulations. But it's still incredibly dangerous in Chicago. You can make the argument under the Insurrection Act, which would allow the president to deploy military forces, including the National Guard, under his control, if you can say authorities at the local level aren't or won't enforce federal law or protect constitutional rights, right? You can make that argument. And that was an argument that was being made in Seattle in the summer of 2020 with the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or the Capitol Hill Occupied Protest, CHOP or CHAZ, you pick. That was basically the argument. And he would have been well within his rights to do it, but he showed restraint. But at some point, he is trying to make a larger point of there's a crime crisis. It's serious. No doubt he polls well on this as well, on top of everything else. I should probably step in and do something. You defend the crime crisis in Chicago. I want to see all those Democrats on TV like they were on TV today on MSNBC complaining about how Chicago is just being targeted because the mayor is black. Which they said Muriel Bowser in D.C. was being targeted because she's a black woman. Now with Brandon Johnson, they're like, no, it's because he's a black man. He's only interested in places where the mayors are people of color. Now, Portland has a white dude as a mayor. Seattle, biracial. So you're going to get killed with the racism, obviously, but not in Portland. Can't do that there. Chicago, yeah, sure, I guess. But the problem is, it's not like he chooses which cities have a crime crisis. But no, it shouldn't come to Seattle. But if it did, I will probably not do a single live show because I'll be booked on TV nonstop. And to that end, maybe I'll get another book deal. We're all thinking it. Or I am.
I mean, I wouldn't complain if they came.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Again, you can hold two positions seemingly in conflict, but they're not. On the one hand, I don't think you can legally make the case that they should be sent to the Seattle area. On the other hand, boy, do I want it. Boy, do I want to be able to walk my dog. I got a dog last April, in case I don't think I brought it up.
No, yeah.
Kudos, by the way, to everyone on Facebook who every single time I post a photo of the dog, I get like 36 comments. I didn't know you had a dog. When did this happen? They're such fans. But I want to be able to walk the street with my dog at night and not feel uncomfortable, or walk him to daycare when I take him and not feel deeply uncomfortable because of everything that's going on. There was, right outside of the daycare center I take my dog to, there was an overdose about an hour after I left. They were able to save the woman, but this is what's happening on our streets. And if we needed the National Guard to come in and clean this all up, I'm in.